If you read the report, it says that simultaneous election means only the Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha. So, which is about 5,000 people. And 30 lakh elected representatives of panchayat and local bodies are removed from this. What kind of simultaneous election then are you talking about? And the second recommendation, that the panchayat election will be held in after 100 days. It is a separate election. It is not a simultaneous election. What a simultaneous election are these propositions? So obviously they haven't thought through. Media is totally docile these days. They have not torn this report to bits as it deserve to be. Dragging Mr. Kovind, a thorough gentleman that he is, into this kind of a Sarkari committee is wrong. You have seen how these committee reports, what kind of fate they meet. So dragging a former Rashtrapati was inappropriate. It's a very nice reference book, which is it's a nice, very historical document, but its recommendations leave much to be desired. The arguments in favor of the simultaneous election, that it will save money and it will save the time of the government and the leadership, and it will prevent dislocation of the normal work and development work and policy paralysis. Now, some of these are totally fallacious arguments. So you are really so much concerned and so much bothered. I have written many articles giving an alternative route. If the idea is to cut down expenditure, if I tell you some alternative suggestion, this was in the government's hand and a 30-second solution, why have they not even considered it? I've written many times. Why have they? Have I not heard any comment on it anywhere? Because that puts a question mark on the sincerity of the proposal. Even if Parliament is amend the constitution, it will be questioned in the court, and the final word will come from the court, and there they will go by their own principle of basic structure of the constitution.
Every way it is undermining the authority of the state elections. It's undermining the federal and the democratic ethos of the country. Constitutionally also, it doesn't look like a bright idea. So my final question to you, Mr. Qureshi, is this an idea whose day has come and shouldn't be implemented at all? Mr. Qureshi, thank you so much for joining, and I think you're there on the HW News Network for the first time. So it's really a pleasure to have you on the program. And so this one nation, one election, the cabinet nod which has been given, there are several questions, and people already are saying that whether this idea should be imposed on the nation or not. As a chief election commissioner, you've been a former chief election commissioner, what do you feel about this idea?
Well, this idea has been on the table for more than 10 years. I have written about it several times, and the gist of which is that it has both its pros and cons. The pros are very simple, that all three tiers of democracy, in Parliament, Vidhan Sabha and Panchayat, the voter is the same. The polling station where you go to vote is the same. The people who conduct the elections, the district administration is the same. Security machinery is the same. Therefore, it makes a logical sense that a voter goes inside the polling station instead of pressing one button, one machine at a time, and then going again 2-3 years later. So she presses all three at the same time. That seems to make it a very easy proposition. So that is the benefit. But at the same time, whether now it is good, very good for election commission, because for 5 years election commission will be free, they can entertain themselves. So, but convenience and comfort of election commission cannot be the consideration. Ultimately, it is the right of the people to exercise their democratic right, which is crucial. I had heard one BJD politician say that if you ask the people, they love frequent elections because the vote is the only power they have. And if they are deprived of this power for full 5 years, nobody will care for them. No MLA, no MP will come back to them, which has happened many times. How many times we have seen posters put up in the constituency, MLA is missing, Gumshuda ki talash, missing, my name, so much award. So because they don't go back. Now, to avoid such a situation, a repeated election at least will bring them to the door of the voter repeatedly. So, to that extent, they feel very, very important. This is their empowerment and this is the accountability of the politician, which is very important in democracy. So, that is the thing against simultaneous and more in favor of a staggered election. Now, maybe I'll answer your next question.
Now, this was one bit, like you explained, that, as far as accountability is concerned, the accountability can get reduced because now you will have elections once in 5 years. Now, coming to the other aspects, that, what happens to the federal structure, because the state assemblies will be at a disadvantage. They will have to play the second fiddle. So, does it destroy the federal structure? The smaller parties, it doesn't augur too well for the smaller parties as well. So what does one say when it comes to the federal structure? So is one nation, one election capable of destroying this federalism of the country?
Yeah, exactly. That is what is being said. That if we make Indian elections presidential election, they have presidential form of government in many countries of the world, and we could have chosen presidential form when we opted for a Westminster model of parliamentary democracy. Deliberately, parliamentary democracy was chosen as the best model after seeing all the models which were available. For the reason that India was a very diverse country, and it is the constitution called it Union of States. So primacy in this arrangement is of the states, and they come and form a union and give some power to the union. Now, the union becoming larger than life increasingly, historically over a period of time, has been an encroachment on federalism, and which is what many states and party leaders are protesting. Here, what will happen in a presidential form of government, as you say, it is happening in the US. From the entire population of US, you are only talking of two. There are only two faces, two persons. Trump and Kamala Harris, there's nobody else. So, whereas there must be a lot of leadership down the line, nobody talks about them. Same thing will happen here, that our top leader will be the face of the entire democratic exercise and election, and everybody else will be subsumed by his personality, by his charisma. He's a charismatic figure, no doubt. So, he will totally dominate, and perhaps that is the purpose of the whole proposal, because when a voter in a remote village in Bihar, Odisha, or Tamil Nadu is voting, but say surely when you go to vote, you have somebody's face in mind who you are voting for. If that face is of the top leader in Delhi, so the voter's mind will be influenced instead of keeping the face of the Sarpanch in mind.
Right. So you mean to say that it can confuse the voters?
Well, yeah, we confuse the voter, in the sense that there are three different tiers of democracy, and they have different issues. The national level, national issues plus international issues. What should be our policy towards America, our nuclear policy, our policy towards Pakistan, China, nuclear, Ukraine? Now, those are very important considerations. But when you are voting in a village, what is your consideration that your primary school should be functioning, whether Anganwadi is working fine, the drain in front of your house is working fine or not? Those are the consideration and not our Ukraine policy. So, however, when you're voting in a presidential form of government with the top leader and who is bombarded, whose face is there everywhere and whose name is being mentioned by all the media, the mind will be influenced for sure.
No, but from what you're saying, are we to assume that these regional and local issues will really get eclipsed if one nation, one election is implemented?
Exactly. That is exactly the point which is being made, and which I also support, because they will get eclipsed, they'll get subsumed by the national and international issues. To that extent, people will get confused. Although lots of people argue that Indian voter is very intelligent and they very cleverly vote. Lok Sabha vote will go for one consideration, and Vidhan Sabha for something else, and local for something else. it sounds very flattering. It sounds very flattering for India. Oh, Indian voter is very intelligent. But on the other hand, the Indian voter is very simple. So they're getting influenced by the blitz of high power, high pressure media will surely influence. And there has been a study which I had mentioned in one article which is published in my book also. I don't have the exact figures, but broadly, it says when the elections are held simultaneously, 77% people vote for the same party. And if it is staggered by 1 month, it comes down to 61%. And if it is staggered further, it comes down even further, which means that issues are different and people have different opinion for their leaders at that level. And one example which we should remember is the Delhi example. In Vidhan Sabha election in Delhi, one party, Aam Aadmi Party, got 67 out of 70 seats in one election. 6 months, 8 months, or 1 year later, where Lok Sabha election was held, I think probably all the seats went to, or 3 or 4, the majority went to BJP, and in the next election, all 7 went to the BJP. So, same voter, now voting so differently. So, that goes in favor of the argument that voter is intelligent. But if the same voter is made to decide in a simultaneous election on the same day, so 1 year is staggered, she has voted differently. But if it was on the same day, probably all seats would have gone to the same party. So, and 77% is a big number. So, that we cannot dismiss. And this was a study, serious study.
Right. But Mr. Qureshi, does it mean that with the one nation, one election, it's only the bigger parties who will be at an advantage, whereas the smaller parties, the regional parties, it's almost like an existential crisis for them. They will almost be finished.
Well, that is what they're saying, and that is a strong possibility because the national parties, particularly the dominant party, has a lot of money and has a lot of media support. The media blitz which they'll launch will subsume everything else, everybody else. So that is a strong possibility.
But this brings me to the question of deployment of forces. Now, if you have a simultaneous election, obviously the paramilitary forces will have to be brought in, even from the border areas. Now, does this become a security threat as well? Because all the terrorist organizations or the lumpen elements will have their eyes set on this lean period, when the borders will not be fully manned. Then you will have a period where the lumpen elements would know that all the security is focused only on the elections. So does this open the country to a larger security threat? That's a very valid question, but many people haven't answered this as yet.
Yeah, actually, Neelu, many people have not even asked this question. You are the first one who has asked me this question. So, and it is a very valid question because when we discuss the enlistment of the paramilitary forces with the Home Secretary, this is the point that they have to thin the borders, they have to withdraw it from Naxal areas, from northeast, from difficult areas. They have to be withdrawn, and for a prolonged period of 3 months. So one answer is that if the election are simultaneously shot and only one phase, and for 1 month you give us 3-4 times the force, but we'll free them in 1 month, they can go back. Now, Home Minister has said repeatedly, and so has the Prime Minister, that the law and order situation in the country has improved. In the left-wing area, the situation has improved, which means these forces are now easier to deploy. We can withdraw them. So obviously, they said it on the floor of the House, and they made a serious statement. We have to take them seriously and believe them. So perhaps the forces can be made available. And one suggestion which I have been making from time to time, that India's population is growing. India's all general law and order in the international context and national context is an increasing issue. Therefore, why don't we create 100 more battalions of different forces? We'll be very comfortable right now. Do you know the way CRP is drawn from one Naxalite area, sent to another, from Manipur to Kashmir, from there to election to back. As a result, there are so many suicides they're committing because they're under stress, they don't get leave. Therefore, it will be good for our forces if we create more companies. One time
Right.
kharcha, raising these battalions, but they will also be good for peace in the country and also for all the reforms in the election that we are talking about. 32 days, election is over.
But Mr. Qureshi, there is another side to this entire one nation, one election, and that is that has the Ramnath Kovind committee thought through enough? Now, many people are saying that the very idea of having the first phase of one election, then after 100 days you have the municipality election. So, is this whole idea of having one nation, one election, does it look like a joke? Because where is this one election, one nation, one election when you have a simultaneous Lok Sabha and assembly elections, but you completely segregate the municipalities and the urban body polls? So, what is the idea then? Then does it fulfill the idea of one nation, one election at all?
No, yeah, good question. It doesn't at all, because if you read the report, it says that simultaneous election means only the Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha. So, which is about 5,000 people. And 30 lakh elected representatives of panchayat and local bodies are removed from this. What kind of simultaneous election then are you talking about? And the second recommendation, that the panchayat election will be held in after 100 days. Now, 100 days is neither here nor there. It is a separate election. It is not a simultaneous election. It's a separate election with the entire bandobast repeated. And the entire bandobast repeated within the 100 days means it's a huge exercise. It's the most difficult management event of the world, the biggest management event. Before you get over your fatigue, you are deployed again. Ask your if within your family, if you have school teachers who have been deployed on election duty, ask them, those ladies and gentlemen, more ladies, whether they would like to be put on this duty again within 100 days. So now they have no, as you use the right word, they haven't really thought through this. And another flaw in their argument, that if if some Vidhan Sabha loses majority and the state government falls, so election will be held. Now that is not a simultaneous election, but it will be held only for the remainder of the period. Now this creates another problem. I spend lakhs and crores for a 5-year term. Here I'll spend those 5 crores for a 2-year term, 2.5-year truncated term. So what are we suggesting? What simultaneous election are these propositions? So obviously they haven't thought through. Fortunately, since the media is totally docile these days, they have not torn this report to bits as it deserve to be, because at least these defects need to be pointed out. And I would like to remind you of one example of a precedent we had. In fact, dragging the name of, dragging the person of former Rashtrapati into a Sarkari committee is inappropriate. I've been saying it repeatedly. Now, you will remember 20 years ago, there was a scandal in cricket of betting or something. And the then Chief Justice, Mr. Chandrachud, the current Chief Justice's father, who just retired, he was made the chairman of the investigation committee. And his report was, he was so abused by the people, the whole nation, because his report was full of flaws. He was no longer the serving Chief Justice. As Chief Justice, what he said is law. But as a former Chief Justice, you are just a citizen. So dragging him into this kind of a controversy was unfair. Similarly, dragging Mr. Kovind, a thorough gentleman that he is, into this kind of a Sarkari committee is wrong. Now, what is the procedure about a Sarkari committee? It is submitted to the government. The government will send it to the law ministry. The section officer will first examine it. Then the under secretary will examine it. And up the hierarchy, this will be examined. And you never know what kind of, you have seen how these committee reports, what kind of fate they meet. So dragging a former Rashtrapati was inappropriate. Do you think anybody is going to be overawed by the fact that he was the president?
No, but
Therefore, even if the recommendations are absurd, let us accept them because he said it. No.
Stay ahead with our cutting-edge news app. Instantly access the latest shorts in just 1 minute and breaking news in just 50 words. Download now for a smarter, faster news experience.